Hi, in today's video we're going to learn how to solve quadratics using completing the square. So our first step in solving a quadratic is to bring all those terms on the same side of the equation and have the other side of the equation equal to 0. In this question it's already done so. So our first step is to put brackets around the first two terms, the ax squared and bx. And after that we're going to try to factor out any numbers in front of a. In this case there's no factors. Nothing to factor out in front of a since a is equal to 1. So we can skip that step. Then we want to add and subtract b over 2 squared. So b over 2 is going to be 8 over 2 squared, which is 4 squared, 16. So inside the bracket, I'm going to add and subtract 16. So plus 16 minus 16. Close the bracket, plus 5 equals 0. So you can notice in the first three terms, it's a perfect square trinomial, so I can factor it. X plus 4 squared minus 16 plus 5 equals 0. I can collect the like terms, so minus 11 equals 0. I bring the minus 11 to the other side, and I'm left with x plus 4 squared equals to positive 11. So to get rid of this square, I'm going to square root both sides. And don't forget that when you square root the 11, that you have to add a plus minus in front. And now we can solve for the quadratic pretty easily by bringing 4 to the other side, and x equals negative 4 plus minus square root of 11. So you can either keep your answer in this form, or you can give it in estimate. Let's look at the second example. So once again, we're going to put brackets around our first two terms. But this time, you might notice that a is no longer equal to 1. So we have something to factor out. So I'm going to factor out the 2. So I factor out the 2. And I'm going to be left with inside the bracket x squared minus 8x, close the bracket, minus 19 equals 0. Man, that's ugly. Let's try that again. So in this second example, it's going to be, let's look at this second example. So once again, my first step is going to put brackets around ax squared plus bx. And in this example, a is actually not equal to 1, so I have something to factor out. I factor out the 2, and I'm left with x squared minus 8x inside the bracket. And now I'm going to do the same thing of adding and subtracting b over 2 squared. Once again, b is negative 8 this time, so negative 8 over 2 is negative 4. Negative 4 squared is once again 16. So I'm going to add and subtract 16 inside the bracket. So add 16 minus 16. So once again, my first three terms are a perfect square trinomial, so I can factor them. So if I factor that, I'm left with x minus 4 squared minus 16 minus 19 equals 0. Now this time, my negative 16 is inside the bracket. So in order to move it out of sight of the bracket, I need to times it by 2, since I factored it out 2 earlier. So I'm going to do that, and negative 16 times 2 is negative 32, minus 19 equals 0. I'm going to collect the like terms, so 2 times x minus 4 squared, negative 32 minus 19 is going to be negative 51 equals 2, 0. Then I'm going to bring the negative 51 to the other side and be left with positive 51. And I'm going to divide both sides by 2 and then square root both sides. So divide both sides by 2, I'm left with x minus 4 squared equals 51 over 2. I'm going to square root both sides to get rid of the square. And once again, when I square root 51 over 2, I have to add the plus and minus. And I bring the negative 4 to the other side. I'm left with 4 plus minus square root of 51 over 2. And once again, this is an exact answer, but you can estimate it by putting this in your calculator. This last and final example is going to be the most complicated. So firstly, this question is not in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c equals to 0. So I need to convert into that format. So I'm going to bring the 1 and negative 3x to the other side. So 6x squared plus 3x minus 1 equals 0. Now the steps will become the same. So I'm going to put brackets around the first two terms and factor out a, which is 6. So I factor out 6, and inside the bracket I'm left with plus 1 over 2x. So I'm going to do the same steps, which is add and subtract b over 2 squared. So b over 2 squared this time is going to be 1 over 2 over 2 squared. And if you remember, a fraction over fraction is just division. So it's just 1 over 2 divided by 2 squared, which is just 1 over 4 squared. So that's just going to be 1 over 16. So it's going to be 6x squared plus 1 over 2x plus 1 over 16 minus 1 over 16 minus 1 equals 0. And once again, my first three terms are going to be a perfect square trinomial. So 6 times x plus 1 over 4 squared minus 1 over 16 inside the bracket minus 1 equals 0. And to bring the negative 1 over 16 outside the bracket, I need to multiply by 6. So if I multiply 1 over 16 by 6, it's going to be 3 over 8 minus 1 equals 0. And once again, I'm going to collect the like terms. So x plus 1 over 4 squared and minus 11 over 8 equals to 0. So once again, I bring the 11 over 8 to the other side, square root both sides, not again forgetting to add the plus minus in front of the root 11 over 8. And I'm going to bring the 1 over 4 to the other side, making it negative 1 over 4. And my final answer is going to be 1 over 4 plus minus root 11 over 8. So thank you for watching the video. Hope you learned how to solve quadratics by completing the square, and I'll see you in the next one.